Hello. Welcome to the City of Plantation Historical Museum. I'm John Feeney, the curator. And our museum has been closed the past few months, and we know you couldn't come to visit us, so we're going to show you what's happening here at the museum. In each segment, we're going to talk about a display and the items and artifacts in that display from our collection. Today, we're going to talk about telephones. The phones we have here in our collection will be on display. The phone lineman, or the phone repairman, if you recall, when he would come to your home to repair your phone, he would come with a tool belt full of his tools, and he would come with a phone test set. The phone test set was actually a telephone that he carried on his belt, and if he had to climb up the telephone pole to repair the wires, once repaired, he could use this set to actually call and check the line. It was a regular phone, and it had a dial pad that he could use to actually dial the number which he wanted to check. In this segment, we're going to talk again about telephones. In an earlier segment, we talked about the old phones, the wall-mounted phones from the late 1800s, early 1900s. This segment, we're going to talk about the phones in the 1900s into the mid-1900s. Going from the wall phone, the next phone that became publicly used was the candlestick phone or the desk stand phone. This incorporated again the receiver, the mouthpiece, just as our wall phones did. And when these first came out, late 1800s, early 1900s, they did not have a dial. They were basically like these phones. You had to pick up the receiver, speak into the mouthpiece, and get the operator to connect you to the number you were calling. Later, in the 20s and 30s, they came out with the dial down below on the base. These phones lasted well into the 1930s, even the 40s, and perhaps some usage even in the 1950s in some places. After the candlestick came the Model 302 telephone. 1937 began production of this. It was made by Western Electric. It was the most widely used phone in America. The circuitry and the ringer were all in the same housing. It had a finger wheel for dialing. You were able to dial your number that you wanted to connect to. You did not have to go through the operator. Inside the finger holes were numbers and letters, which you used to dial and connect. The letters were used sometimes for the exchange that worked your phone and connected you to the party you were calling. Today we use area code numbers. So we use actually a total of 10 numbers, where in those days it was just 7 numbers without an area code. In those days, the phones were actually leased to you. If you had a phone in your house, it was a lease from a certain telephone company. Usually on the bottom of the phone it would have a label or a seal on it that told you property of the phone company, and it would be the name of the company. Your leased phone charge was on your telephone bill when you received it. That was before the days of being able to go to a store and purchase a phone yourself. After the Model 302, which was pretty much, like I said, 1937 to 1955, that era for that phone, came the Model 500 telephone. an updated version of the 302. It replaced the 302. It had a revised dial. They put the numbers on the letters on the outside of the wheel, as opposed to being inside the finger holes on the older phone. Not only was this a dial phone, but later on, the touch tone was added. In 1963, they began production of the touch tone buttons. And again, just like there were 10 finger holes, there were 10 push buttons for the touch tone phone. And then around 1968, they added 2 more buttons to the touch tone pad on the Model 500 phone. And that was for the star insignia and the pound or hashtag symbol, because they knew future phone enhancements were going to be using those 2 buttons also, besides the 10 numbers. This phone was considered a technical advancement. It had exceptional transmission efficiency and receiving quality over the Model 302 phone. This was pretty much the standard phone from 1950 to 1984. Another popular phone during the 1960s was the Princess phone. The promotional phrase for the Princess phone, which was really produced from 1955 to 1964, it targeted women in the promotion. It said it's little, it's lovely, it lights. The dial would actually light up. The dial could also be used as a nightlight. Later models had a switch where the light could stay on, but it would also light up when you picked up the receiver if you didn't have it as a nightlight. These were small size compared to the Model 500, and these phones could be placed in the bedroom, on small tables, in other rooms. They're very light, 3 pounds lighter than the 500. But it was so light that when you dialed the phone, it would move. It was very light and sometimes move around when you dialed. So to solve that problem, the company actually had to put a weight inside the phone. Then later, an internal ringer was added, which had weight to it, and that took care of the weight problem because it was so light. There were available colors in blue, beige, white, pink, gray, turquoise. And rumor has it that there was also a black phone that was requested by First Lady Jackie Kennedy. These also eventually went to touch tones. The next phone is the Trimline phone. Ours is a little bit more modern than when they first came out. Ours is a reproduction of the Western Electric model, and ours is roughly from the 1980s. These were first introduced around 1965. Again, they had the lighted dial, but the difference between this and the Princess was the dial pad was inside the handset. Again, they started with just 10 buttons, and also added later in their models were the star symbol and the hashtag symbol. That was around 1968. This particular model here was produced for Federated Department Stores, which now is the Macy's line. But this one may have been produced for Burdines at one time during the 1980s. These, again, were manufactured by Western Electric, which was the manufacturing unit of the Bell system. The Dynatac cell phone, 1984. The world's first commercially produced cell phone. Motorola introduced this in 1984 after more than a decade of research and work in cellular technology. And it is considered the first available handheld cell phone. The phone is about 9 inches tall, weighs 2.5 pounds. It had 30 to 60 minutes of talk time, and then it had to be recharged with a battery for a number of hours. In 1984, the approximate cost was $4,000. Known sometimes as the brick, due to its size and weight, you could purchase a carrying case for the Motorola Dynatac. This also has the 12 keys on the keypad, and it again has the star and the pound sign or hashtag as it is known today. And it had some other keys for the cellular part of the phone. Motorola started in 1928 near Chicago, and it was an early innovator of car radio receivers. In 1943, Motorola developed the world's first FM portable two-way backpack for use by our servicemen in World War II. Another interesting point about Motorola, in 1969, it was a Motorola transponder that relayed the first message from the moon to the Earth. Motorola had a manufacturing plant here in Plantation. It opened in 1971. And part of the Motorola Solutions is still there. Motorola had made at our Plantation facility some subparts of the Dynatac. And these systems which they made were shipped to Chicago plant for full completion of the phone itself. So some of the subparts were actually made for the first cell phone here in Plantation. This particular cell phone was the City of Plantation's first cell phone. So we've gone from a candlestick to a brick, and we're beyond that now in technology. So over the years, telephones have had major changes in outside designs, features, shapes, interior components, and technology. But as we all know, no matter how many changes, we can't live without our telephone. So from the staff of the Plantation Historical Museum, the City of Plantation, and the Plantation Historical Society, we say thank you for watching.